Hello there, and welcome back to War Thunder. So today we are having a look at the TTD, a 9.7 rank 7 British/South African medium/main battle tank. This is indeed the top or very bottom, if you will, however you want to look at the tech tree, which is funny because both Australia and South Africa are on the other side of the equator, so technically it's upside down, which is funny. I'm German, leave me alone, okay? Thank you. So it's the end of the grind for the South African sub-branch tech tree. That's what I wanted to say. Okay, that sounds good. I'll leave it at that. Battle rating 9.7, rank 7. So I want to compare it excessively to the Challenger Mark II and the Challenger Mark III. While they are at the rank lower, they share the battle rating of 9.7. And if you already have the Challenger Mark II and Mark III, why would you get this one? And this is what I want to explore in today's video a little bit. So there are a few differences where you might not be too familiar so far within the British tech tree, because unlike the Challenger Mark IIIs, which have a 120mm gun with 5-second reload for a fully trained ace crew, you have here a 105mm with no stock AP-FSDS but stock heat-FS with 6.7-second reload. The rest of the gun handling and the mobility and the armor is not too different, and so the playstyle is very familiar. Now, it would be a lie if I would say that this is a very exciting tank. For me personally, this is a tank that I probably have already played 1,000 times throughout the various different nations and tech trees. The armor is not too spectacular. From the side, the hull is very weak, same for the rear and the top. The front is very trolley and very unreliable at best for both the hull and the turret, for both dealing with kinetic and chemical energy based weaponry fired at you. It's strange, so I don't want to go too much into it. Whenever I fired at such a thing, I didn't achieve any sort of penetration, but whenever I get fired at, I get penned by whatever shoots at me. So also in the armor review that Gaijin provides us in the hangar, it flickers around with all the numbers. It's really weird, like it seems to be bugged. Let me just quickly go over the mobility. We have a 1250 horsepower strong engine for a 60.5 ton tank. The Challenger Mark III, for instance, has a 1200 horsepower engine for a 65.5 ton tank. So while both tanks are at around 20 horsepower per ton, the TTD is feelably more mobile, and not just with the top speed of 71 kilometers per hour, where it is above the 20 horsepower to ton ratio, whereas the Challenger Mark III is with only 56 kilometers per hour top speed, below 20 horsepower per ton ratio. The reverse gear is also kind of nice with 31 kilometers per hour, definitely usable. So then we have 3 crew members in the turret, 1 driver, and when you make a good penetration on the upper frontal glacis, you can actually kill all the crew if you shoot on the left hand side of the tank when it faces you, with the right hand side being occupied with the ammo rack, which you can empty quite well. So then we have also overall a ready rack of 17 rounds, with one of them being in the breech, and the ready rack is at the rear of the turret with a protection shield from the ammo explosion. At least this is what is suggested in the X-ray. It has never saved me so far when it comes to a blowout panel. So then the rest of the gun handling, and this is not too bad, to be honest. 10 degrees of gun depression, 20 degrees of gun elevation, and we also have a turret traverse of 36 degrees per second, which is really nice, and a gun elevation speed of 10 degrees per second. So far, so good. But there are a couple of things that I missed, to be honest. First of all, the thermal imaging that this tank has is not the very best, but usable, but only for the gunner, not for the commander. The next thing is, this tank has no machine gun. Not a light machine gun, not a heavy machine gun, not a top mounted or coaxial one. None. It's just a tank and a gun. Some say that's all that you need. But whenever you, for instance, get damaged, you can't mark the enemy with scouting it because you're not a light tank or an SPA that has this functionality, or tank destroyer, whatever. You cannot mark the enemy with shooting at it with the machine gun if your gun breech, for instance, is damaged. So that makes the tank really... Come on, he just rammed a tree. How? Just my luck. Anyway, so that is really a big problem. You can't threaten planes properly, except if you're really good with your gun. Go Type 93, go. And that makes it in many instances awful. You also cannot shoot at obstacles in your way. Bushes, trees, wooden stuff. You know, sometimes such stuff can be destroyed when shooting at with the machine gun, so you have to plow through all those stuff that is in your way. Again, you're not really that bad when it comes to the horsepower to ton ratio. Now, at its battle rating, I think the tank is fine, especially with the top round. As I said, you have here a stock heat round, and that is really awful when you then have to engage enemies that, you know, at a full up tier, you're facing the best of the main battle tanks. And with a stock heat FS round with 400mm instead of 480 from the usual 120mm guns that other nations have to suffer through, except the Russians or the Swedish, because they also have stock AP FSTS, just like the Challenger Mark II and Challenger Mark III. You know, at first this tank is really not that desirable. It has longer reload, it has no machine gun, and the armor is unreliable to say the least. And you have a stock heat FS with only 400mm of penetration. That is god awful. Then as a tier 1 you get the M11-1 AP FSTS, your DM23 for all L7 variants, and 337mm is good enough for side shots. And with the same muzzle velocity of 1455 meters per second, you get then as a tier 4 upgrade the DM63, which then kind of makes up for it by having 436 millimeters at 0 degrees angles of attack and 252 millimeters of penetration versus 60 degrees angles of attack, and at 2000 meters you're just falling under 400 millimeters of penetration. So it's a great sniper. It is a better shell than the Challenger Mark II and Challenger Mark III get as their top shell, the Shot L23A1 respectively, which seems to have the same values that the DM63 has at 2 kilometers, you have at point blank range. Think about it whatever you want, but that is just how it is. Now, is the tank worth it? To be honest, it's a bit awkward, and yes, it's different, as this is a little bit like a typical Western MBT, like your Leo A1A1, like your OF40, like your, you know, the what's it called, the French Super AMX 30, you know, bit like in that region. But you are at the full battle rating higher of 9.7, which is at best what they get in a full up tier, you get at best in a full down tier. And you very often have to deal with that stock grind, and even with this good AP FSTS, the DM63, you get to see the best of the tanks. And then all of a sudden it's subpar. It doesn't really stand up to the challenge. So it's a bit of a strange tank, and yet it is a mandatory switch of flavor for the British in the British tech tree. It complements the lineup very well because it's faster with a harder hitting gun when fully spaded, but it doesn't have the reload, it doesn't have any sort of machine gun, it doesn't have hash. So there are a lot of things missing. You could say that a lot of trade-offs have been made to gain this extra pen for a 105mm. And then again, I would just look at the Americans with their Striker, which has so far the best 105mm APFSTS with a whopping 522 at 0 degrees and 302mm at 60 degrees angles of attack. So I'm not really a fan of this tank, and it's not really that outstanding even with its best APFSTS. Still, a decent tank, a good tank with the usual Western stock run. And that's all for me today, so thanks for watching, thanks for listening, please give this video a like with it, subscribe if you want to see more, and we'll see each other on the ways, in the skies, and on the battlefields of War Thunder.